What's up, everybody? Today I'm here to talk to you guys about the Italian Renaissance. The Italian Renaissance was a monumental time period in history, with innovations in philosophy, science, sculpture, painting, as well as architecture. There's no doubt in my mind that the events and thinkers of this era influenced life and thought for all of posterity. Of all the advances that took place during the Italian Renaissance, it is my belief that literature and poetry were far and away the most interesting. Francesco Petrarch, Giovanni Boccaccio, and Niccolò Machiavelli played key roles in the advancement and revolution of Italian literature and paved the way for future intellectuals. So let's start our journey at the beginning with Francesco Petrarch. Born in Arezzo, Tuscany on June 20th, 1304, Petrarch was a devoted classical scholar who was considered the father of humanism, a philosophy that helped spark the Renaissance, according to Bio.com. His writing was also used to shape the modern Italian language. In his early years, he studied law at the University of Montpellier and Bologna, under the command of his father. However, he was much more interested in Latin literature. In 1326, he moved to Avignon, France, where he worked in numerous clerical offices. This work gave him much time to devote to his writing. With his first big project, Africa, an epic in Latin about the great Roman general Scipio Africanus, Petrarch emerged as an European celebrity. He traveled widely in Europe and served as an ambassador. During his travels, he collected old Latin manuscripts and played a big part in the recovery of knowledge from writers of Rome and Greece. Petrarch has been called the first tourist because he traveled just for pleasure, which was the basis of why he climbed Mount Ventoux. Climbing this mountain was no great feat, of course, but he was the first recorded alpinist of modern times, the first to climb a mountain merely for the delight of looking from its top. Once at the top, he took St. Augustine's Confessions from his pocket and reflected that his climb was, quote, merely an allegory of aspiration towards a better life, end quote. One of Petrarch's favorite lines from the book is as follows: "And men go about to wonder at the heights of the mountains, and the mighty waves of the sea, and the wide sweep of the rivers, and the circuit of the ocean, and the revolution of the stars, but themselves they consider not." According to J.H. Plumb, Petrarch's response was to turn from the outer world of nature to the inner world of soul. In one of his major pieces of work, Epistolae Familiares, Petrarch writes, "I closed the book, angry with myself that I should still be admiring earthly things, who might long ago have learned, from even the pagan philosophers, that nothing is wonderful but the soul, which, when great itself, finds nothing great outside itself. Then, in truth, I was satisfied that I had seen enough of the mountain. I turned my inward eye upon myself, and from that time not a syllable fell from my lips until we reached the bottom again." American psychologist James Hillman argues that this rediscovery of the inner world is the real significance of the Ventoux event. The resistance begins not with the ascent of Mont Ventoux, but with the subsequent descent, the return to the Valley of Soul, as Hillman puts it. On April 6, 1327, Petrarch met a woman named Laura in the church of Saint Claire d'Avignon, which, quote, awoke him in a lasting passion, end quote, and was celebrated in his piece Rime Sparse. Later, other poets from the Renaissance who copied Petrarch's style named this collection of 366 poems Il Canzoniere. Laura may have been Laura de Noves, the wife of Count Hughes de Sade. There was little definite information in Petrarch's work concerning Laura, except that she is lovely to look at, fair-haired with a modest, dignified bearing. Laura and Petrarch had little or no personal contact. According to his secretum, she refused him for every proper reason that she was already married to another man. He channeled his feelings into love poems that were exclamatory rather than persuasive, and wrote prose that showed his contempt for men who pursue women. Petrarch is best known for his Italian poetry, most notably the Canzoniere and the Trifoni. However, Petrarch was an enthusiastic Latin scholar and did most of his writing in this language. His Latin writings include scholarly works, introspective essays, letters, and more poetry. Among them are Secretum an intensely personal, guilt-ridden imaginary dialogue with Augustine of Hippo, and De Viris Illustribus, a series of moral biographies. Another pioneer of literature and poetry during the Italian Renaissance is Giovanni Boccaccio. Boccaccio was born in Cercaldo, Tuscany in 1313. He attended school in Florence and developed an interest in business at the age of 10. He was sent to Naples to study business and law in 1327, but his growing interest in literature took him away from studying these subjects. He eventually gave up on studying and entirely dedicated himself to literature. In Naples, Boccaccio began what he considered his true passion, poetry. Boccaccio returned to Florence in early 1341, avoiding the plague in that city of 1340, but also missing the visit of Francesco Petrarch to Naples in 1341. However, Boccaccio eventually developed what would become a lifelong friendship with Petrarch, beginning in 1350. Both writers often worked closely with each other. Boccaccio began work on one of his most famous pieces, the Decameron, around 1349. It is believed that the plot of the tales date from earlier in his career, but the choice of 100 tales and the frame story dates from this time. The work is estimated to have been completed around 1352. It was Boccaccio's final effort in literature and one of his last works in Italian. Boccaccio's writing style saw a change in the 1350s and was not due just to meeting with Petrarch. It was mostly due to poor health and a weakening of his physical strength. It was also due to disappointments in love. Such disappointment could explain why Boccaccio, having previously written always in praise of women in love, came suddenly to write in a bitter Corbaccio style. He attempted to burn his own work and sell off his personal library, letters, books, and manuscripts, but Petrarch persuaded him otherwise. His final years were troubled by illness, some relating to obesity. He died at the age of 62 on December 21st, 1375, in Cercaldo, where he is buried. One final innovator to impact the Italian Renaissance is the great Niccolò Machiavelli. Machiavelli was born on May 3, 1469, in Florence, Italy. He was a historian, politician, philosopher, and humanist. Machiavelli was also a diplomat in Italy's Florentine Republic for 14 years during the Medici family's exile, where he was responsible for military affairs. In 1494, when Florence restored the Republic from the Medici family, Machiavelli was appointed to a medieval writing office, which put him in charge of the production of official Florentine government documents. Between 1503 and 1506, Machiavelli was responsible for the Florentine militia. He did not trust mercenaries and instead staffed his army with citizens, a policy which proved to be successful many times. In 1512, when the Medici family returned to power, he was dismissed and briefly jailed when the Medici family accused him of conspiracy against the family. After his release, Machiavelli retired to his estate and devoted himself to study and to the writing of the political treatises. It was at this time that he wrote his masterpiece, The Prince, a handbook for politicians on the use of ruthlessness, self-serving, and crookedness, inspiring the term Machiavellian and establishing Machiavelli as the father of modern political theory. After some time, Machiavelli began to participate in intellectual groups in Florence and wrote several plays that were both popular and widely known. Still, politics remained his main passion, and he maintained a relationship with more politically connected friends. The Italian Renaissance had many different contributions to all parts of life, society, and culture that can still be seen today. When it comes to literature and poetry, however, there are none more influential than Francesco Petrarch, Giovanni Boccaccio, and Niccolò Machiavelli, whether it be love-laced pieces like Petrarch's Canzoniere or political works like Machiavelli's The Prince. Literature and poetry were without a doubt changed for the better during the Italian Renaissance.